Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Brookhaven Town Jeffersonian Democratic Club meeting. Today's date is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. I'd like to say that it is wonderful to see people in person to start off our spring meeting. And I would ask if everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm sure everyone in this room would agree that we have our thoughts and prayers to the people of the Ukraine as they fight for democracy in their own country. For anyone I haven't already had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Lisa DeSanto. I'm president of the club. With us tonight, we do have our vice president, Ed Smith, in the back of the room. And we have our treasurer and immediate past president, Kevin Hines, with us this evening. And of course, our secretary, John Mulvey. So I'd like to thank the executive board for their efforts. I'd like to dispense with our agenda as written for the moment so that we can focus on our guest speaker. And I know that everyone in this room is looking forward to bringing back the 3rd Senate District as far as having a good, solid, hardworking Democrat. And so tonight, our guest speaker is Monica R. Martinez. Thank you, Monica, so much for joining us.
Good evening. So good to see all of you again. I hope your families are well throughout this whole pandemic that we've endured, and I hope that you're well too. But I want to say thank you for having me here and just pretty much telling you why I'm running again. I felt that the work that we started has to continue. We have not finished the good work that we started. As you know, we are a very progressive state, and by progressive I mean moving forward with initiatives that really mean something to working families here in New York. And in the past, you have given me your support, and I want to thank you for that. I know every single one of you has had and has played a role in my election and my success, and I look forward to having that once again. So one of the reasons why I'm here today is because obviously I am looking for you again to have your support and your encouragement as I have had in the past, and to really, like Lisa said, bring back the Senate District to where it belongs in the hands of a Democrat. And from what I've seen as a personal resident of the 3rd, we haven't really seen much representation in the last year and a half. And especially myself, who lives in Brentwood, I have not seen my rep in the entire time. So for me, that's very telling of where this individual has been. And I made an effort when I was in office to really visit the entire district. It is a big district. I may not have gone to every single place, but I definitely made an effort to do so. And I feel that what our residents in the 3rd need is a person whose heart is in it, a person who has worked to be where she is, and that's me. And just really going through the trials and tribulations that I have gone through, that my family has gone through, things that we understand that some people will never understand because they've never been in those shoes. And I want to make sure that I bring that back. And I want people to know that they have a humble representative in me, and that I will work as hard as I did when elected again to do what I did best, and that is help the community that, one, raised me, one, that made me who I am, and expand the district. I am a former teacher. For those of you who do not know, I was a history teacher for about 10 and a half years, and then I became an administrator in the Brentwood School District, a school district that many people don't see the good in, but let me tell you, it's an amazing district with amazing kids and amazing teachers. And we have seen during COVID what it did to some of our students going remote. I think it's something that we need to focus on. Obviously, this is something that no one expected, this pandemic, but it happened and it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And a lot of our children suffered. Some definitely excelled. Some did so well working at home, but others did not, especially children with disabilities, children with a language barrier. Those individuals did not fare well. And as a state, we need to do better when it comes to our education. In terms of our working families, we're seeing right now, and yes, it is because, well, part of it is because of what's happening over in Ukraine. We're seeing the gas rate going up, right? We're seeing families struggling still. We're seeing people out of jobs still. And even though there is employment and employment is down, you still have people who have not been able to successfully find a job. That is something that we have to work towards as well. There's a lot that still needs to be done. I know that one of the biggest things that the 3rd District really wanted, and I just spoke with other groups, and that obviously is affordable care. All right. We saw a lot during the pandemic that people were not able to access healthcare during the pandemic, and that's something that should not happen. Obviously, we need to find the funding stream to do so. We can't take away from one area to give to the other and have something else collapse. We have to find revenue, and what we can do best is do that. We can find money where money is and make sure that we're allocating to the right places. Another big thing for me, and here in the 3rd too, we are very close to the water, is water quality. We ran on that a few years back. It is very important for Long Island. Little by little, we're sinking, and we really need to protect our natural barriers. Working at state parks for the last 13 months, I've learned a lot, and I think that experience can now help me successfully into the water quality and our coastal waters and making sure that we do the right thing. So things happen for a reason, right? Obviously, I did not win my re-election, but I will tell you it was a blessing in disguise. I was definitely going through some personal issues with my family during that time when I was running. And sometimes family got put to the side, and that's something that I regret. But it's a year that I took of reflection, find out who's who, find out who really is with me. And obviously that is my family. They are my foundation. And we did lose someone during that time period, which was very difficult. But, I believe that this time has given me the strength and has given me the ability to focus and move forward and really get to know who people are and who has always been there. And it's a lesson learned. And you can't always just trust everyone, which I've always done. And it's something that's always been in me. But now it's more about getting the work done, right? I've always led with my heart, but I also need to lead with intelligence and listen to people and hear people out, see what their concerns are, and really just focus on making the district better. So that's really why I'm running again. People are saying, why are you doing this? And others are saying, it's so great that you're doing it. And those that are saying, why are you doing it, is because we had a tough election 2 years ago. And it's not that they don't want me back. It was hard, and it was hard on a lot of people. It was hard on a lot of my employees, my staff, my team, that we worked hard. So I want to make sure that we do better, we do more. And with your support, I think we can do that. So thank you for having me here. And of course, I will take any questions that you have.
All right, Vito, if you would.
Sure. Coming this autumn, when we're all knocking on doors and making phone calls, within 15 seconds, what should we tell them about you?
I could write you a script, but...
I'm just going to interrupt for the purposes of the tape. Coming this autumn, when we're knocking on doors, what should each of us tell future constituents about you, Monica or Martinez?
Thank you. I think what people need to know about me, one, is the legislation that we have passed in the state of New York, and obviously I will provide that for you. Not only did we put a property tax cap on Long Island, all right, that was very important. Record funding to our schools, that's something that was also very important. For me personally, I passed legislation that protected women and protected women's health care. That was a big accomplishment for myself, to tell you the truth. And honestly, I think what would resonate with people is that my heart is in it, and I really work hard to do what I need to do. Not every other problem is going to get solved, and I know some of you, in speaking with Lisa, have had concern with constituent services. That to me was very hard to hear, because that's something that I take very, very to heart and very personal. Because when someone calls my office, it's how can we help? And there's always a follow-up. And if those follow-ups do not happen, that to me is a reflection of myself, and it's a reflection of my team. And that's something that I don't appreciate. So when you do go out there, people need to know that I am responsive, that I will be there, that my door is always open. I give my cell phone out. I'm gonna have to get another phone just for constituent services. But it's something that I strive to do. And like I was telling Lisa, whoever brought this complaint or concern to you regarding constituent services, and whoever's out there knocking on doors, if there is any way to make sure who those individuals are, because I would personally call them and apologize personally, because that is something that I do not accept, and I want them to hear from me. And if I don't know, I can rectify the problem. And I don't want to say that it's too late, but I also want them to know that if I don't know, I can assist, and then they can always personally call me and leave a message, and I call back.
Lisa, with the war in Ukraine, Americans have to do some things to tighten their belts, like maybe conserve energy, or how will Monica lead the charge to conserve gasoline and carpooling and all the things that we're going to have to do to try to help the Ukrainian people? What is New York State going to do to help the Ukrainian people?
Okay,
Are we going to bring people in? Are we going to bring refugees into New York?
trying to summarize Ed's question, what will you do in the state senate in regards to the offshoot of the war in the Ukraine, in issues such as gas prices, possibly rehoming refugees, and any other economic issues that may befall us?
Thank you for that. I'm hopeful that this war ends soon, right? But obviously we don't know. And as you may know, New York State right now, and my former colleagues and some friends up there are already working on that. The governor has already said that we will welcome refugees from Ukraine. I think New York has always been the open arms, right, of refugees, of immigrants, and I don't see that being any different this time around with the Ukrainian people. And for me, if when there, I will support any measures being taken by the state legislature. Just before I came, I was watching the news, and they were giving tips on how to save money on gas, right? And that is using cash and instead of credit cards. Just trying to inform people how to live in a world of war, even though we're not directly involved, but we're being indirectly hurt by it. So this is something that obviously I would work with my colleagues to make sure that we do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I think one issue that has been publicized and I think would resonate with kind of everyday voters is just the horrible conditions of the roads. Driving along an expressway, driving along some of the secondary roads, the potholes, the patch jobs. I'm wondering what the New York State Senate, you as a senator, would be able to do in order to more expeditiously fix the roads, so that everyday people aren't getting flat tires and incurring maintenance on their car. You got a flat tire?
I got two.
All right, just to restate that question, we've all seen all over the news, and many of us have experienced personally, the poor condition of our state roads and state highways, and would like to know what you could possibly do about that.
I have in the past, and I will continue doing that when back in the Senate. I actually worked with our Senate Division of Budget to allocate funding to our local municipalities for road improvement. And that's something that I have done, and I would continue to do so. The way it comes down, the monies are allocated in the budget for specific items, like line items in the budget, and then they go directly to the municipalities, and then the municipalities then do the patch up and the road work. But honestly, DOT, the Department of Transportation, depending on what the road is, because as you know, you have the state roads, you have your local roads, you have your county roads. So every single one of them has a different pot of money. For us, New York State would be obviously our state highways, but we should be able to then funnel money down into our local municipalities. So I have done that. I would do that again. I would advocate for additional funding to make sure that our roads are a priority, right? They're the ones that have to take us to our, to point A, from point A to point B, and hopefully to point C. Sometimes we don't get to point C because of the roads. But I completely agree. I think this is something that does resonate with voters. I think it's something that voters need to know also, that there is a time period aside from the winter that people could literally, if there is a damage on the road, they can contact the state and get reimbursed for any type of damage done to their vehicle because of a pothole. And that is there's a time period throughout the year that individuals can do that. I mean, if anything, I think it should be all year round, right? I don't think that during a certain time of year it should be excluded, because the worst time of year is when we have the most amount of potholes, right? So I think it's a little disadvantageous that we do that, but that's something that I would definitely seek to rectify.
So just to follow up, one thing I've always been curious about. So the Long Island Expressway is, it's now Interstate 495. I'm old enough to remember when it was State Route 495. So is that like, are repairs on the Long Island Expressway addressed by a state pot of money, or must it be a federal pot of money?
That's a great question. I've always been under the impression that it is state, but we also get federal funding as well, right? So we do get federal funding, just like we would give to municipalities. We get federal funding from the government for us to do our state roads as well.
Well, part of the solution would be getting cars off the road.
Yes. Public transportation.
And using public transportation, the railroad, buses, city trains, buses, okay? But parking's an issue. If you want to take the train from Lake Ronkonkoma or Port Jeff or Riverhead, you have to park your car. And parking, it's difficult.
So that's something that, do you have, yeah.
If I could, Kathy was saying that part of the solution would be for us to be more willing to take mass transit, but one of the issues is if you choose to use the Long Island Railroad, it is extremely difficult to park at many of the stations.
And
Just to add that is a national priority in the battle against Russia as well. Carpooling, taking the trains, that is what we have to do with the oil shortage and the wheat shortage and everything that's going to come up.
Yes, and those are solutions in the meantime. Now, in terms of parking, look, I agree. All right, I'm not going to tell you that parking is not a nightmare. What we would have to look at is work with our Long Island Railroad counterparts, right? We do have a new president now, President Phil Ang stepped down. We do have someone else in there now. But when you look at the railroad stations, you really have to look if there's even room for expansion, right? Because
You have to go up.
and maybe garages, right? Garages, and that's something that, again, would have to be at the local level, building permits, construction, and so forth. But I think if you do build up in terms of garages, yes, because when you look at for example, Wyandanch Rising, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wyandanch Rising, but Wyandanch Rising, has the train station there, but they just built a lot of apartment condos and so forth. And within that, they built a parking garage too, right? But the land was there and so forth. So that's something that we have to look into. The one thing that you also have to keep in mind is that people sometimes don't like the new construction. They don't like change. So we would have to find a way to really say, look, this is going to be a good in the long run. It'll increase parking. But yes, we would have to look at each lot, or at least the major ones, right? Ronkonkoma, Hicksville, like your hubs, right? I think the hubs are the ones that really get crowded, and perhaps those are the ones that we should really look at.
And if people are taking the train, it would behoove them to carpool with others to the train station.
Okay, so Pam is making a point that if we are going to take the train, we should attempt to carpool
To the
to
station.
the station.
You won't be carpooling to Manhattan, you'll be taking the train.
And I think that's a part of probably an education process that we need to.
I agree. And look, and I could even start promoting that, right, during this time period, and allowing people to understand that there are other alternatives that they could take right now, right? And that's something that we can look into, and we could start educating individuals now before it gets worse, right? Because we're not even seeing the tip right now of what might happen here on Long Island with what's happening in Ukraine. So I think that'll be definitely a good educational campaign to begin, and we'll start that. And just kind of encourage people to carpool and public transportation.
Other questions?
Well, I don't know how many years ago, but people would take ride their bicycle to the railroad station, but they didn't have enough areas where they could lock their bike where it would be safe.
And again, that's something that we can discuss with look, getting a bike rack is not expensive at all, right? Again, working at parks, we install them everywhere because people go through our parks and they park their bike. They're not expensive. It's something that could definitely be done.
Yeah, if you live within a mile or two.
Yep.
And you're younger than.
Trust me, I forgot the last time I rode a bike, unless it was stationary.
Yes, I have something to add to that. That's why you have the growth of transit-oriented developments. Now, the new Ronkonkoma hub, we have 1,000 new residents at the Ronkonkoma hub, with most of them taking transportation into the city.
I almost moved there, but it was way too expensive.
Yes, it is. They have over 90% vacancy right now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they're still expanding, so they're
I know.
doing very well. I have another question, sort of related to that. With all the expenses and cost of living in New York, how do we keep the young adults and senior citizens from moving to other regions of the country?
All right, so Kevin has a question that's actually near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
With the increase in living expenses here on Long Island, how do we maintain our young people and senior citizens in regards to being able to afford to stay here?
I think that's a question every year, right? And every year we don't have a solution, and it's actually very troublesome. But we try to make efforts to keep people here. What we need to really do in the state of New York is make sure that our workforce is also competitive, right? I don't think our workforce is as competitive as other states. I don't think there are many opportunities for our young to really compete in the workforce that we have. We need to better train them. We need to make sure that we provide the education that they need in order to be competitive. I think we are fighting against other states and other countries. And aside from that, we need to develop more. And I know this is horrible, right? Because people don't like development. But honestly, a lot of young can't live here because it's also very expensive. And I'm telling you that from my own self experience. And it's been hard to find something close to my parents because I'm their caretaker, to be close in proximity to them, and still live on one single salary, which is mine, right? So it's just my salary to myself and my parents, and then my furry children, who are very expensive, right? They eat a lot, but this is something that we need to really, really look into. And I'm hoping that at one point we're able to do that and make sure that we are able to give individuals enough ability to really stay here. So it's a question that keeps being asked, and it's a question that we really have to work at. But I think the workforce development is something that we really need to focus on in order to really keep our young here.
But you talk about the population leaving the Long Island or New York and going elsewhere. We won't say where. But every time you turn around, they're building condos.
So what I would love to see, Kathy, honestly, our development, you know how they have senior citizen development? I really feel that they should do something similar for the young.
But these aren't just for seniors, they're for families.
Well, so what I'm saying is like there are some.
They just leveled out a golf course on 347 to build condos.
And they're expensive, right? These condos are expensive, and they're definitely not cheap. But what I'm also saying is that we have 55 and over developments. I'm a big advocate for developing for young families also.
4 young grandchildren in their late 20s, and yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know, and like I said, I'm not that far from 55, so I can't wait till I'm kind of close to that, right? But I know, right? Like I want to wait, but I don't want to wait. But it's one of those things, right? Because I know that I'm able to, at least at my salary, but again, at a senior citizen salary, a 55 and over home is expensive. All right, so, but those are conversations that we could also have. I know that in the state Senate right now, they were actually looking to increase the amount of affordable housing within a construction. I believe right now is at 20%, if I'm not mistaken. If we actually increase that percentage to affordable homes when building construction, I think that's something that we can also do. And the other thing with that is it needs to be fair and equitable, because what I've seen when they do construction and they do have the affordable side, those materials used are less than the ones that are in, so.
That's plastic money can buy.
But I would make sure that does not happen, because I disagree with that. If it's going to be affordable housing, doesn't mean that they should get less than someone else.
Right.
All right, if we have one last question, Ed?
What is New York State going to do if other states, like Republican states, decide to make it illegal for their citizens to come here, to travel here for women's health care? Because there's been some talk about that happening. And the other question I was going to ask is New York going to get a big pile of money from the federal government from these Joe Biden's bills that he's passed? And if we do get a huge amount of money, what are we going to do with it?
So right now, according to the governor, from what I have heard and what I've read, due to what's happening in the Ukraine, we did get substantial amount of money from President Biden, but I believe she's being very cautious in how it's being spent in the event that this goes further than what we're expecting. So yes, we did get funding from the federal government under Joe Biden, but we are being being very reserved to conservative to make sure that we keep what we have. Now, in terms of women's rights, I think it's very it's scary what some states are doing when it comes to a woman's right to choose and a woman's body. But like I said before, New York is a state that welcomes all. I do not foresee New York State saying no to anyone who wants to come to New York State for not only affordable health, but to protect their right as a woman.
It was their state who said you can't go.
So what we would have to do, I mean, that's a very good question, but we would probably do something along the way that we do accept, right? We do invite. No one can tell, unless it's the federal government, interstate travel cannot, in my opinion, cannot be. Yeah, I don't see that. I'm going to put my history teacher hat on, but both the states, all states have reserved powers, reserved that they could do certain things. But when it comes to interstate travel, it would have to be coming from the federal government to say, no, you cannot travel from state to state. And I don't foresee that happening.
That would be one heck of a Supreme Court case.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. But I would support and advocate for any woman who wants to protect their way of life.
Any last words that you might have for us, Monica?
No, I just want to say no, but yeah, I'm going to say something, right? I just want to say thank you for having me here again. It's great to see all of you. I'm glad you're all doing well, and I look forward again to working with you and bringing back the 3rd Senate seat to in the hands of someone who actually loves what they do and appreciates everything that everybody else does. And with your support, I know we can do it. I know I can do it again. That's why I hired Keith all over again, so we can have a repeat of 2018. So again, thank you for having me. Tony, so great to see you. Tony and I obviously worked when he was in labor, and my brother's still is, a huge labor union individual, and that's how I really got close to the union world. Plus, I was a union member under the Brentwood Teachers Association, and I was a union member under SANES, which is the supervisors union for New York State. So again, thank you for having me here. Any questions, please let me know.
Madam President, may I just make a comment?
Go ahead.
Thank you. We all know Monica Martinez, but I don't know how many of you have actually worked with her. I have worked with her on the Suffolk County Women's Committee. You were the only Suffolk County legislator who actually showed up at our meetings, was prepared during the meeting that she attended, and came back the next month with what she had promised to check into, and come back with solutions or more questions that arose while she was doing her work. Based on that, I give her my unqualified endorsement.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam, for those comments. And I'd like to welcome our co-chairs of the Brookhaven Town Democratic Committee, Tony Spielman and Anthony Portese. And I don't know, Tony, if you wanted to say a few words, or Anthony?
Come on up here, Anthony. So, I always like to say, first of all, say hello. It's good to see everybody. I always like to say semi-past, future, hopefully. But Monica, it's been a long time. Just to let you know, I also, Pam, give my unequivocal endorsement for Monica. I know her a long time, as she said. When I was a union president, she always came to bat for my members. When we had strikes and picket lines, you were there. And certainly your brother was with you. But just know that anything that I can do as the current chair of the BDTC, and Anthony as my first vice chair, Diane in the back is another vice chair. We're with you. We're for you. Whatever you need, if you need a place to have a meeting, you need to have some people, we'll get them for you. Okay? Anthony, want to take the word? Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Tony. Anthony,
I got nothing to say.
you'll just second that?
Yeah,
All right. Well, Monica and Keith, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure you have some other things on the campaign trail, so please feel free.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And have a nice rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.